This is the story of the drum. It is said that when Creator was giving a place for all the spirits to dwell, who would be taking part in the inhabitants of Mother Earth, there came a sound, a loud boom from off in the distance. As Creator listened, the sound kept coming closer and closer, and finally it was right in front of Creator. "Who are you?" asked the Creator. "I'm the spirit of the drum," was the reply. "I've come here to ask you to allow me to take part in this wonderful thing." "How would you like to take part?" Creator asked. "I would like to accompany the singing of the people. When they sing from their hearts, I will sing as though I was the heartbeat of Mother Earth. In that way, all creation will sing in harmony." Creator granted the request, and from on, the drum accompanied the people's voices. Throughout all of the indigenous peoples of the world, the drum is the center of all songs. It is the catalyst of the spirit of the songs to rise up to the Creator, and so the prayers of those songs reach where they were meant to go. At all times, the sound of the drum brings completeness, awe, excitement, solemnity, strength, courage, and the fulfillment of songs. It is the mother's heartbeat, giving her approval to those living upon her. It draws the eagle to it, who carries the messages to the Creator. The drum alone can change people's lives. This is the story of the coming of the Hopi from the Underworld. A long time ago, the people were living below, and there were a great many of them, but they were often quarreling with one another. Some of them were very much depraved. They abused the women and the maidens, and they led to very many contentments. So the chiefs, who were worried and angry over this, had a council and concluded that they would find another place to live. So they first set out a bird named Monsni to find a place to exit from this world. He flew up high, but was too weak and returned without being successful. Then they sent the mockingbird, Yapa. He was strong and flew up very high and found a place of exit. Returning, he reported this to the chiefs. In the meanwhile, the chiefs had caused a great flood. Many came out of the ground with the water, and a great portion of the people were destroyed. When the mockingbird made his report to the chiefs, the latter said, "All right, that is good. You are going away from here." They then announced that their crier that in 4 days they would leave, and that the woman should prepare some food. And after they had eaten on the 4th day, they would all assemble at the place right under the opening which the mockingbird had found, and this was done. The chiefs then planted a pine tree. Kalavi sang around it, and by their singing made it grow very fast. It grew up to the opening which the Yapa had found, and when the chiefs took and shook it, they found that it was fairly strong, but not strong enough for many people to climb on, especially its branches, which were very thin. So they planted another kind of pine, Lo Opo, sang around it, and made also grow fast. This tree and its branches were much stronger than the other, but while the first one had grown through the opening, this one did not reach it entirely. Its uppermost branches and twigs spread out sideways before they could reach the opening. Hereupon they planted the same manner of reed, Bakavi, which proved to be strong and also grew through the opening like Kalavi. Finally, they planted a sunflower, and as it was moist where they planted it, it also grew very fast, and to a great size, its leaves also being very large, but the sunflower did not reach the opening. Its very large disc protruded downward before it reached the opening. The sunflower was covered with the little thorns all over it. Now they were all done with this. Hereupon, Spider-Woman, Puk Nagoya, his brother Bala Ongwaya, and the mockingbird that had found the opening, climbed up on the Kalavi in the order mentioned. After they had emerged through the opening, Puk Nagoya embraced the Kalavi, his brother the reed, both holding them firmly, and they should not stake when the people come there while climbing up. The mockingbird sat close by and sang a great many songs. The songs were as they still chanted in the welcome ceremony. Spider-Woman was also sitting close by watching the proceedings. Now the people had began to climb up, some on the Kalavi, others on the Laopo, still others on the Akovo, and on the Bakavi. As soon as they emerged, the mockingbird assigned them their places and gave them their languages. To one he would say, "You shall be the Hopi, and that is the language you shall speak." To another, "You shall be a Navajo, and you shall speak that language." And to the third, You shall be an Apache, a Mojave, etc., including the white man. The language spoken in the underworld had been the following: the Pueblo Indians, Kawayaki, Akokavi, Kiticha, Kitiki. The four branches of the Pueblo Indian speaking essentially came the same language. In the underworld, the people had been very bad. There being many sorcerers and dangerous people, just like there are in the villages today, who are putting diseases into people. Of these, the Papwaktu. One is also found his way up with the others. The people kept coming out, and before they were all out, the songs of the mockingbird were exhausted. Happy P. Shalothi. Now my songs are gone, and at once the people were still in the ladders commenced returning to the underworld. But a very great many had already come out, an equally large number having remained in the underworld. But the Keek Mogwai from below was where the others had come out of the Kiva. The people who had emerged remaining around the Sapapu, as the opening was, and has ever since been called. At this time, no sun existed, and it was dark everywhere. The half-grown son of Kikmagwa took sick and died, so they buried him. His father was very angry. Why has some Pawaka come out with us, he said. We thought we were living alone, and wanted to get away from these dangerous men. That is the reason why we came out, and no one has come with us. Hereupon he called all the people together and said, On whose account have I lost my child? I'm going to make a ball in this fine cornmeal and throw it upward, and on those head the ball alights. Him I shall throw down again into the Sapapu. Hereupon he threw the ball upward to a great height, the people all standing and watching. When it came down, it fell on the head of someone and was shattered. Ashohi, so you are the one, the chief said to him. But as it happens, this was the chief's nephew, his younger sister's son. My nephew, so you are Nakpana, dangerous. Why have you come out with us? We did not want any bad ones here, and now you have come with us. I'm going to throw you back again. So he grabbed him in order to throw him back. Wait, he said. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to throw you back, the chief replied. Wait, his nephew said again, until I tell you something. You go there to the Sapapuni, and you look down. There he is walking. No, he is not, the chief replied. I am not going to look down there. He is dead. But Chief went and looked down there, and he saw the boy running around with the other children, still showing signs of the head washing which the Hopi practice upon the dead immediately after death. Yes, it is true, the chief said. Truly, there is going to be a bout. So do not throw me down there, his nephew said. This is the way it will be. If anyone dies, he will go down there, and let me remain with you. I'm going to tell you some more. Then the chief consented and let his nephew remain. It was still dark and there was no sunshine. It was also cold, and the people began to look for fire and for wood. But it was so dark they could find very little wood. Thus they lived there for a while without fire. But all at once they saw a light in the distance, and the chief said, Someone go there and see about it. When they still been in the lower world, they had occasionally heard footsteps of someone up above. So some of them went in search of light, but before they reached it, he became tired and returned. Another one was sent, and he got there. He found a field in which corn, watermelons, beans, different things were planted. All around the field, the fire was burning, which kept the wood and by which the ground was kept warm, so the plants could grow. The messenger found a very handsome man there. He had 4 strands of turquoise around his neck and a very large turquoise ear pendants. In his face he had 2 black lines running from the upper part of his nose to his cheeks, and made with spectacular iron. By his side, standing his friend, a mask which looked very ugly, with large open eye holes and a large mouth. So it was Skeleton, whom they had heard walking above in their world. Who are you, Skeleton? Asked the messenger. Where do you come from? Yes, he replied. We have come from below, and it is cold here. We are freezing, and we have no fire. You go and you tell you people, and then you all will come here. So he returned, and the people asked him, Now, what have you found out? Have you found anybody? Yes, he said, I have found somebody, and he has a good crop there. Skeleton had fed the messenger with some of the good things which he had had there. The people had not bought much food with them from below, and so they had not very much left. The people were very glad for this invitation and went to the place where the skeleton lived. But when they saw the small field, they thought, well, that will be gone in a very short time. But Skeleton always planted, and the food was never gone. When they came there, they gathered some wood and built a fire, and they warmed themselves and were very happy. Skeleton gave them roasted ears and watermelons, squash, etc. And they ate and refreshed themselves. Some of the plants were very small yet, others still larger, so they always had food to eat. So the people remained there, made fields, and there were always kept a fire in the fields, which warmed the ground so that they could raise a crop. When the crop had matured, they gathered it all in, and when they now had provisions, they planned to start off again. But there was still no sun and it was cold, so they talked about this, saying, now it ought not remain this way. So all the chiefs met in council with Skeleton, and they talked this matter over in order to see whether they could make a sun as they had in the Underworld. They did not just know how to do it, so they finally took a piece of dressed buffalo hide, which they cut in a shape, stretched it over a wooden ring, and painted it white. Then they pulverized some black paint, which they drew with a picture of the moon around the edge of this disc, sprinkled the center of the disc with the same black color, then attached it to a stick. Hereupon they stretched a large piece of white native cloth on the floor and placed this on the disc, and all these objects they had brought with them from the Underworld. They then selected someone and directed him to stand on the moon symbol. Hereupon the chiefs took the cloth by its corners, swung it back and forth, and then threw it upward, when it continued swiftly flying eastward into the sky. So the people sat and watched. All at once they noticed that it became a light in the east. Something was burning there as they bought. The light became brighter and brighter, and something came out of the east. It rose higher and higher, and where the people were became lighter and lighter. So now they could go about and they were happy. It turned out to be the moon, and thought it was light. The light was only dim, and the people, when they were working in the fields, would still occasionally cut off their plants because they could not see very distantly. And it was still cold, and the people were freezing. They still had to keep the ground warm with the fires. So the people were thinking about it. The chiefs again met in council and said, Isahohi, it is better already. It is light, but is not quite good yet. It is still cold. Can we not make something better? They concluded that perhaps the buffalo skin was not good, and that it was too cold. So they decided that this is the time that they would take a piece of apu. They again cut it a round piece, stretched over the ring, and this time painted it with oxide of copper. They painted eyes and a mouth on the disc, and decorated the forehead of what was resembled a yellow, red, and many other colors. They put a ring of corn husks around it, which were worked in a zigzag fashion. Around this, they tied a tawahan, that is, a string of red horsehair, finally thrusting a number of eagle tail feathers into the corn husk ring, fastened to the back of the disc. In fact, they prepared a sun symbol, as it is still worn on the back of the flute prayers in the flute ceremony. To the forehead of the face painted on the disc, they tied an abalone shell. Finally, the chief made of the feathers of the small yellowish bird, called the irhoya, which resembles a flycatcher, but this some red hair on the top of the head. Of these, the chief tied one of the points of each eagle-tailed feather to the sun symbol. Then they placed this symbol on the white cloth again asked someone to stand on it, and as in the case of the moon, they swung the cloth with its contents into the air. When it kept twirling upward and upward towards the east, soon they saw light rise in the east. It became brighter and brighter, and then became warmer. That proved to be the sun. It had not come up very high when the Hopi already felt its warmth. After the sun had been created and was rising day after day, the people were very happy, because it was now warm and very light, so that they could attend all their work very well. The children were running around and playing. They were now thinking of moving on. They had a great many provisions by this time, and so the chiefs again met in council to talk. Let us move away from here, the chief said. Let us go eastward and see where the sun rises. But let us not go all together. Let some take one route, others take another, and others still further south. And then we shall see who arrives at this place where the sun first rises. So the people started. The people of White took the southern route. The Hopi, a more northern, and between them traveled now Pueblo Indians of what is called New Mexico. Of certain parties would remain at certain places. Sometimes of several years, they would build houses and plant. Soon, they became estranged from each other and would begin to attack and kill each other. The Castilians were especially bad and made wars on other people. When starting, the chiefs had agreed that as soon as one of the parties should reach the place where the sun rises, many stars would fall from the sky, and when that would happen, all the traveling parties should remain and settle down where that would be that time. When the people taking the southern route became tired of carrying their children and their burdens, one of the women bathed herself, took the scales, and she had rubbed off of her body and made horses of the scales. These horses they used after that for traveling, so that they could proceed much faster. In consequence of this, they arrived at the place where the sun rises before any other parties arrived, and immediately many stars fell from the sky. "Aha," the people said who were still traveling. "Someone has already arrived." Hereupon they settled down where they were, and it is also agreed upon that before the different parties started, that there were those who did not reach the place where the sun rises would be killed by their enemies. They should notify those who had arrived at the sunrise, and the latter would eventually come to help them out.